Now, change gear. The genetic revolution has the power to change who you are, not just what you do. Did you know that your genetic code will work in a monkey? And yours works in a centipede. Did you know that you are 86% the same as an earthworm? And you are 93% the same as an orangutan? That's okay. Did you know that the cucumber genes will work inside your brain perfectly? And did you know that all of your genetic code is written in the same language? Microsoft Basic. And this is the miracle of life. You don't remember anything other than just one thing. You remember something very important. The miracle of life is that every organism on the whole world is written in the same code. And 85% of all the genetic code inside every living creature, including every bacterium, every fungi, every yeast, is the same as in your body. And we can cut and paste whatever we like, one slice of your genetic code into a cucumber, and then add both of those bits into an oak tree, and they'll work fine. Now, although you're laughing, that gives us the most staggering power, because we can cut and paste this genetic stuff just like Microsoft Word. So we can create insects with 2 wings. Well, they have 2 wings anyway, but we can put extra pairs of eyes on those wings. Let's look at some other things we can do. If we go back to the slides. You know, the first 150-year-old human being may already be alive. I think that's quite likely. Think about it. What that means is that by the year 2154, we may be celebrating someone's 150th birthday. Believable? 2154? Yes, it is believable. And actually, it could have happened as a result of someone who was born today. Now, this is how we are at the moment. 18 years to adulthood. Actually, I don't think it is, really. I think it's about 35. I've got an 18-year-old. Who here has got a 25-year-old and they're still like boomerangs? They go and they come. They're still funding education in a 33-year-old going through his 4th degree. And still haven't got married or had children yet. Why? Because adolescence is going on to the early 30s, isn't it? Have you noticed? Right. Now, it's a strange thing, isn't it? So we're extending, what was happening, very interesting, we're extending childhood and adolescence right into what used to be adulthood, certainly into the 30s. By that I mean adulthood, if you define adulthood as the acceptance of responsibility in a settled environment with long-term commitments to family and the future. I know that's only one very narrow definition, but if we were to take that, then we would say that 18 years doesn't do it anymore, right? Okay. Now, here's another trend, too. The 60-year-olds are now wanting to retire at 50, so we've got influencers in our society who are giving out an image that basically it's okay not to settle down until you're 35, and another group of influencers in our society who are saying, well, I'm expected to retire when I'm 50. So we've got a period of sort of working adulthood which is being redefined in our society as a 15-year window. Now, actually, it's unsustainable, isn't it? Let's have a look here. Back to the slide again. I want to know who here feels biologically younger than you think your parents were at the same age. Put your hands up. Okay, have a look now. Right. Who here thinks you're biologically a decade younger than your parents were at the same age? Put your hands up now. Have a look around. Well, ooh, my goodness me. Who thinks you are... you think of your grandmother at the same age that you were now, or your grandfather. Well, perhaps you say, well, anyway. Who thinks you're more than 15 years younger biologically than your grandparents were at the same age? Put your hands up. Okay, let's look at the next slide. Okay, now, actually, I've redefined age. You see, if we say youth, let's extend it from 18 to 20. That's very conservative. We could say it's 30 years old, right? And we'll say that the first lifers, the phase of life is a 40-year period from 20 to 60. Then the second lifer period is from 60 to 100. You're looking at me a little strangely there. And we call the seniors those who are over 100. Now, although you're laughing, I happen to think that life begins at 60. I'm sorry that you can't quite read that. But you could argue that life begins at 60, or it will do very soon. Now, this has very profound implications for AARP. Let me explain some of the reasons why I'm thinking about these things. By the way, you can redefine these ages. Let's go back to the slide again. We could push the youth up to 30. We could bring down the second lifers to 90. And we say, well, it's at three 30-year periods. The first life is 30 to 60. Second life is 60 to 90. You know, the extraordinary thing is most of you here will live till you're 90. Or not quite. But you have a really good chance of getting there. I'll tell you why. The life expectancy of people who are well educated in America, who are passionate, who are reasonably affluent, have a reasonable standard of living, which would be most of you here, in fact the vast majority of you, in fact all of you, that your life expectancy is higher than the average American. The average American life expectancy now is what, 83, 84, 85? And it's growing. Did you know that did you know that every 4 years the Japanese government tears up the forecasts for how long Japanese women will live? And they add another 12 months. Every 4 years the Japanese government realizes they're wrong again. We live in extraordinary times. I'll just go back to these genetics again. We can combine any animal with anything we like. We've made 1 million transgenics, in fact, in the last 3 years, just in the UK alone, just in Britain. That's a monkey mixed with a goat, a chimpanzee with a pig, a human being with a fish. Yes, they grow to 4 times their normal length in 12 months. A spider's web gene mixed in with a goat. That produces a spider's web, by the way, in the milk of the goat. You just milk the goat, collect the web, and spin it out, and you get a new bulletproof jacket. Now, for those who are hair follically challenged, I have good news for you. Using stem cell technology and other things, it looks like we're going to be able to grow new heads of hair quite easily. And we'll certainly be able to grow new teeth. We're already doing it. You just take a small bud of cells, and you can grow them actually in the mouth. That's being done now in various mammals. Or you can grow them in the abdominal cavity of another mammal. Who here knows someone who has macular degeneration? Okay. Macular degeneration affects 10 million Americans. And in fact, American citizens say they fear going blind more than anything else. But you know, macular degeneration is going to be a curable disease, a treatable disease. I was talking to someone at Harvard Medical School recently. He believes that he has a treatment which is going to be effective. I'll just go back to that slide, actually. He believes that he's already restoring sight in animals. He takes stem cells from the animals. He injects those stem cells into the retina, adult stem cells, not from some embryo, from adults. And these stem cells regenerate the retina. He is going to start clinical trials in less than 5 years. He believes that it will be a 2-hour treatment as an outpatient, as a fairly routine therapy for people with macular degeneration within 10 years. It is absolutely astonishing. My first training, as I said, as a physician before I got into writing and futuring and other things like that. But I'm still very involved in medicine, and I've been tracking these things. I have to tell you that the things I'm talking about now are utterly astounding. It is stuff that would have been science fiction even 4 years ago. There was another research paper just in the last week showing clearly that another miracle. You know, suppose you were to have a heart attack. Sorry, what's your name? Tom. Suppose Tom, heaven forbid, but suppose you were to have a heart attack. Okay? We know now that if we were to take bone marrow cells from your bone, take a sample of your bone marrow, and we inject that bone marrow either into your vein or directly into the heart, that it is very likely that we will see an improvement in your clinical function of that heart. The extraordinary thing is that these bone marrow cells, bone for heaven's sake, bone marrow cells will find their way around your body. They will be looking all the time for heart muscle that's been damaged. And if they find any, they will move into that damaged area of the heart, and they will help that heart make a perfect repair. I think that is absolutely incredible, don't you? Incredible. Now, did you know this morning that part of your brain repaired itself? Did you know that your bone marrow has also capacity to regenerate brain tissue? How do I know this? I'll tell you how we know. You know, doctors discovered a woman who'd had leukemia, so she'd had her bone marrow irradiated. And she had cancer, and she was given some bone marrow from a guy who was a close match. But when she died, they cut up her head. Sorry about that. But they found that she had a male brain. They found male brain cells in her female head. Now listen, my friends, how on earth did those get there? They got there from her bone. Why? Because her bone is constantly seeding cells into her head. Extraordinary. Now, we're rewriting all the medical books I can tell you at the moment right now. So, not only can the brain repair itself, has the potential to repair itself, but we can get paralyzed rats to walk again. You remember the Christopher Reeves injury with a cut back, cut spinal cord, it was actually in his neck from a horse injury. And he's paralyzed from the neck down. And as you know, although your nerves in your arm regrow at 3 millimeters per day, those in the spinal cord do not. Well, they do now. We've discovered that if you take bone marrow cells from a rat after cutting the spinal cord and you inject those cells into the back of the rat, those rats start running around their cages 6 to 8 weeks later. Clinical trials will be starting in human beings in the next couple of years. If my daughter had a serious car accident and was paralyzed from the neck down, I would want her to have some of this stuff in her back as soon as possible. Now, this is incredible stuff. What's even more incredible is this, that if this was a new drug treatment, how long would it take to get permission from the FDA? Well, you know about that, don't you? And, by the way, that's not such a bad thing because it keeps some of the rogue drugs out of the market and protects us. That's what it's for. But it takes 15 years to produce a good drug, 15 years of research pushing it all the way down the pipeline to get it out as a drug you can use, right? Guess what? This isn't a new treatment. John, if you need some of this stuff, I'm taking your cells from your bone marrow. This is your property, owned by you in law, and you can compel me by law to put it back inside your body. It's not a treatment. After all, it's your tissue. I'm giving it back to you. And therefore, you can move from animal studies to human studies in just 4 weeks, not 15 years. We can grow organs to order. Our researchers have grown a miniature perfect human kidney in the inside of a mouse. Now, you think, my goodness. Just hang in there for a moment. Fast urban. Urban is to do with demographics. It's also to do with lifestyle fads, fashions, and choices. And another big issue, remember, I'm just filtering out 1 or 2 things here out of these 6 faces. The 6 faces is like a big radar screen. You just turn the radar screen and you see what pops up. Here's one thing that pops up, obesity. Did you know that 250 million people will have type 2 diabetes by 2023? 1 in 3 of all newborn babies born in America today will get diabetes by the time they die. 6% of the US population is diabetic, including 1 in 4 of those in this room. I won't ask for a show of hands. 1 in 4 of you in this room has diabetes. You may not know it, but you may well die from it. Now, this is a very serious issue. It's a growing issue. It's almost entirely preventable because it's caused mainly by diet and imbalances within it. I'm not talking about insulin problems creating insulin for a small child. I'm talking about overload of a body, a systematic overload, so that we just cannot carry the mass that we have without pushing ourselves into diabetes and producing sugar in our urine, producing catastrophic problems down the way in terms of mental deterioration, heart deterioration, circulatory problems, impotence, all kinds of other things. So obesity is a very big issue, and it's an example of how, while medicine is extending our lives, some of our lifestyle choices are shortening it, which is why it's so absolutely vital for AARP to continue to encourage healthy lifestyles. Now, here's an amazing thing for me. 2 out of 3 of all those who have ever reached retirement age are alive right now. Here's another. Germany is becoming extinct. So is Scotland. So is Italy. So are many countries. Why? Because some people can't have kids, so it takes 2.2, 2.3 children per household in America just to sustain your population, right? Well, in Germany, it's only 1.2 children per household at the moment. What that means is, if you have 8 grandparents, you only got one grandchild, 1 or 2 grandchildren. It means 16 great-grandchildren. I mean, it's not, you're talking about a progressive shrinkage. It means there's only half the number of children in each generation than there should be just to keep the population stable. So you go through 2 generations, you've only got a quarter of your population. You go through 3 generations, you've got 1/8 of your population. My friends, you've heard about the population bulge and the graying of America. What people don't realize is it's nothing to do with, well, it's to do with lots of things, but one of the things that's to do with is the failure to breed. If people stop having kids, then any society ages dramatically. And that's what's been happening. In fact, in America, you have Hispanic populations which are continuing to believe in parenting, who have fertility rates which are significantly higher. But English-speaking, white American population seem to have decided to give up on breeding. Same in my country. So you say, okay, well, we offset by immigration. Yes, okay. But I'm just saying, actually, you could argue that a very important part of AARP's care for the future aging population would be to encourage a younger generation to feel great about having kids and to encourage policy changes, tax regimes and other things that will make it easier for parents to actually have children. Because actually, we cannot survive in a society where parenting has gone out of fashion. We have a crazy world where people are deciding to have children for the first time at the age of 30, at a time when I know as a doctor that fertility is falling through the floor. So there are only 50% of the number of children that should be in German schools this morning, because the rest of them weren't born 10 years ago. What about longevity patterns? If we look at people who are more than 100 years old in the United States, our conservative expectation is that number will more than double over the next decade. So I wasn't joking when I talked about seniors being those over the age of 100. I think we should classify those over the age of 100 with a special status in our society. And there will be over 200,000 of them very soon. In fact, there'll be more than 250,000 before very long. So why don't we give them a name? Something. You know, I said, well, why do we call them seniors? They are senior citizens, for goodness sake. People who are over 100. I've got one of my relatives is 97, 98, and going strong. She's nimble. She can't quite play football, but no, she's incredible. I think both her hips are her own. She doesn't look a day over 82. My grandmother was practicing medicine until she was 84. We were slightly worried about the medicine, but actually, you know, she was doing medicals and things like that. She was working. She retired when she was 84 years old. Do you know General Motors now spends more on health care for people who used to work for General Motors than it does on steel? Perhaps you knew that. And if we look at aging in developed countries, I'm glad you're interested in the global picture, because I am. I'm passionate about it. You know, over the next 20 to 30 years, we will see a 15-fold increase, in the number of men over the age of 60 and a 20-fold increase in the number of women over 60. By the way, AARP is predominantly a female organization. I hope you know that. I haven't heard much discussion of that, but you're mainly a women's group. Why? Because 2 out of 3 people over the age of 65 are women in every developed country, because guys, well, we tend to die off. Actually, you could argue that one of the greatest policy challenges for AARP is to improve the health status of a minority group within America, which are men over the age of 65. It's a minority group who are disadvantaged, who have a very low life expectancy, have high degrees of morbidity, poor health, poor quality of life compared to the women who are over the age of 65 who are motoring away until they're 148. Retirement age is a last century idea. Let me say that again. Forget the idea of a retirement age. It's history. And people are already working far later in life. Even my grandmother did that, and she died 10 years ago. And society needs older people. Anyway, society needs a mix and match where people feel able and are welcomed and encouraged, warmly encouraged, to work for as long as they would like to. People opt in and out. With longer life expectancy, it means that someone can still look forward to 3 times as much years in retirement as they ever had before, and still retire at the age of 70 because of that life expectancy issue. Most people didn't get any retirement in the olden days. They worked until they dropped. The idea of retirement is a late 20th century invention, really. By the way, people ask how retirement will be funded, and they forget there's all kinds of interesting things. Firstly, that people will, in fact, be working in bits and pieces. People say, well, how horrible, Patrick, how terrible that you're going to require people in your vision of the future to carry on working. They say, you try stopping my grandmother from working. We kept on saying to her, don't you think you ought to play some more bridge, play some more golf, and give up some of those medical? She said, listen, it's my life. How dare you tell me how to run my life? I only do it 3 days a week, but so what? I enjoy it, and the insurance company pays me well, which means they must value me to do it. So, we need to rethink everything we've ever thought about retirement. Not only will people be supplementing their income, and because they're healthy and well and fit and they want to do it, but also, there's another issue. $4 trillion will move from one generation to another in America over the next 10 years. From inheritance. We have never in America seen so much money flow. And you know what? Those who inherit are retired. Why? In the olden days, you inherited at the age of 43 from mum and dad. Now, chances are, you're 78 and you're waiting for your second hip, and you're going in and doing the laundry for 98-year-old mum, and you're still paying the school fees of your 48-year-old going through his 5th education. And you just inherit $500,000. You're 78 years old. So there's going to be some interesting things here. Lots of pensions are going to find themselves supplemented by inheritance. And the other thing, of course, is that many more people in America than has ever happened before own equity in their own homes, especially over the last few years. And I know that share prices took a hammering, but the fact is that there is equity around. There's more of it than many economists have judged when thinking about policy and how people will survive. Now, 65% of all health spending is in the over 65s already. That's $470 billion a year in the United States of America. Listen, most major diseases are age-related. In fact, you could say that there's one common element in almost all diseases. Here is an interesting thought. Suppose I could find one mechanism. You remember I said that 85% of the genetic code in all organisms is the same, right? Well, 90% of all the processes in every one of your cells are the same, right? So if one of your brain cells is aging, it's probably the same reason why one of your kidney cells is aging. It's probably the reason why one of your skin cells is getting older, and the reason why one of your hairs went grey. It's all related. There can't be that many mechanisms of aging. Common sense tells us that we might find one or two common pathways which could explain a way we could slow down not only the aging of a brain cell, but at the same time the wrinkling of the skin. Now that's exciting, isn't it? You see, we're talking about common mechanisms. Now let's go back to the slides again, because, you see, if you decide that most diseases are diseases of aging, if you think about it, arteriosclerosis, it doesn't matter what disease, you pick an illness. And apart from infections, most diseases are diseases of degenerative processes, right? Most of the things that you're suffering from in this room right now are diseases of aging, and they almost certainly have a common basis. So we could find one biological key that could sort out 10 or 15 tables across this room. Now that's interesting. And it's a hugely neglected and incredibly controversial area for research, but it's one that AARP will have to get involved in. It's unavoidable. Aging itself has become a dominant unmet need. Gone are the days of saying, well, we're just getting old. You know, it's just getting old. Well, actually, if you start thinking about aging in a new way, you start thinking about two things. One, if it's worn out, fix it. If it's broke, regenerate it. Those are the kind of technologies I showed you before. Or two, slow down the aging process itself. Now, of course, you might say, yes, but Patrick, what's the point? See, in the old days, you had fun when you were 20, and then gradually the energy levels went, and you're worrying that, in fact, all that happens as you elongate mortality, as you elongate life, is that you just land up with years and years and years of chronic disability. So what we're talking about is using medicine to compress morbidity. You're pushing that graph to the right-hand side. So like your Duracell battery goes. So, see, my grandmother died at the age of 94. Tragically, it was her brain that went. But everything else was fine. If only we'd been able to keep all of her body parts going in sync together. So at the time when her brain was failing was a time when her heart was failing, a time when her kidneys are going, a time when her bones are going out. And you think, well, this is her time. But it's tragic when you've got someone who could still run a marathon at the age of 92 in her physical body, but her mind is gone. Now, just to get us thinking about a new kind of world, I'm not saying you're going to live till 160, but there's some very interesting things that we've discovered. We found a worm which lives 5 times as long if just a couple of genes are turned off. 5 times as long. There is a drug that's under trial, has been under trial in humans. In mice and rats, it makes their skin more elastic and removes all the stiffening of their arteries. That's an extraordinary thing. So the arteries become as elastic as an 18-year-old or a 1-year-old mouse, and the tails spring back when they're stretched. Now, what would happen if we could find a drug that would restore your arteries to normal elasticity so you don't have to take blood pressure medication anymore, and when you look in the mirror and pull your skin, it goes whoop, like that. And we're not just talking about a face lift, we're talking about a body lift. We're talking about every part, every centimeter of skin in your body becoming as elastic as a newborn baby. You're thinking, oh yeah. Listen, we've done it in mice and rats. Astonishing things are happening. Okay, carry on. There's a twice-daily treatment that's been tried in mice and rats called metformin. It's a drug for diabetes that's been here for many, many years. It has very, very few side effects. We've used it for 30 years in medicine. If you give it to non-diabetic mice and rats, they live for 20% longer and they have an 80% reduced risk of cancer. A whole load of human beings on the West Coast have already started taking it themselves. They don't want to wait and find out if it works, by which time it'll be too late. We've discovered animals that are eternal. Some whales don't get old. Bowhead whales come in 2 types. Some live for 200 years, some only live for 20. There's one gene probably that's different between them. There are 2 American teams right now in a race against time to find that particular gene which turns off the aging mechanism. If you don't get old, you still die, but you have the same statistical risk of dying from an accident or pneumonia or something like that every year, but you don't age. We know that turtles don't get old. We know that sturgeon fish don't get old, and we suspect it's the same gene. We also know that if you look at senior citizens, those who are over 100 years old, you find a gene that is the same as that in long-lived yeast and worms. And you find that if that gene is expressed twice on both of the chromosomes, they are much more likely to live over 100 years old. So watch this space. We'll see a lot of this kind of stuff. We have seen a huge rise in life expectancy in the 20th century. It came mainly from reducing childhood mortality. If you save a child from dying, you add 80 years of average life. Okay? If you save an old person from dying for 10 years, from say 80 to 90, you only add 10 years. So you have to work much harder in the next century to get the same kind of improvement in life expectancy as you had in the last. If you eliminate all cancers, heart attacks and strokes and diabetes, you will only add another 10 to 12 years of life expectancy average. Death rates would need to fall in every decade by 85% in order to get an average life expectancy as high as 100 years. Now, so what I'm saying is, watch this space. Life expectancy will improve. It's going to go on improving more rapidly than the forecasts have traditionally implied, which is we're going to find that other governments, like the Japanese government, will have to keep tearing up their forecasts. That will mean a redefinition of things like retirement, a redefinition of what middle age is, and it will have profound society implications. Now,